Robert Lemon, known to his loved ones as Rob, was a man with a heart of gold. From the outside, his large stature and the tattoo of his last name on the back of his head might appear intimidating, but those close to him knew that he was a gentle giant, a big teddy bear with a kind soul. When Robert and his wife Sabrina first met, they instantly connected. Sabrina, a sweet and loving person, instantly resonated with Robert's character. Despite their differences, they formed a deep bond and fell in love. Faith was deeply important to them, and they attended Mass together every Sunday. In 2000, Robert and Sabrina were baptized in the same church, solidifying their commitment to each other. They later exchanged vows in a beautiful ceremony in Arizona, surrounded by their family and friends. Over the years, the couple had 2 children, dedicating their lives to raising a loving and stable family. Eventually, Robert and Sabrina decided it was time for a change and relocated to Silver Lakes, California, a picturesque town located 99 miles from Los Angeles. Silver Lakes was a peaceful family community that offered a perfect setting to raise their young family. Sabrina stayed home and cared for the house and children, while Robert worked at BNSF Railway, a job he loved. Robert's job at the rail yards was both his passion and a source of pride. He genuinely loved what he did and excelled in his role. His superiors admired him for his reliability and his unwavering work ethic. The rail yards were a bustling and chaotic environment. Despite Robert's dedication, the work was not without danger. The area was frequented by thieves who would patrol the rail yards looking for cargo to steal. These individuals posed a significant threat to the safety of the employees. However, Robert never let these security concerns deter him from his job and remained vigilant. With Robert's size and smarts, he could easily take down any opponent, human or animal. Robert was more than just a man, he was a force of nature. Robert's personal life was as vibrant and dynamic as his personality. He and his wife, Sabrina, 2 peas in a pod, had an active social life and loved nothing more than throwing parties and hosting gatherings at their home in Silver Lakes. They were known for their warm and welcoming personalities, attracting people from all walks of life into their circle of friends. But what captivated everyone about Robert and Sabrina was their youthful energy and unbreakable bond. Robert and Sabrina were like a couple of teenagers in love, not a long-time married couple. They had adorable names for one another and were always laughing, leaving those around them feeling uplifted and inspired. Robert's attentiveness and dedication to Sabrina left many of her girlfriends envious. They wished their husbands were as attentive and considerate as Robert. He seemed to know exactly what Sabrina needed and would always support her, making her feel valued and loved. Even though Robert and Sabrina's social circle was large, at the core of their friendship was a group of tight-knit men and women who referred to themselves as the Wolf Pack. This Wolf Pack included Jason Bertine, a firefighter in Silver Lakes, and his wife Kelly, a hairdresser. As the years went by, Robert and Sabrina became the go-to people for parties, creating a fun atmosphere filled with laughter and good times. Alcohol played a significant role in the lives of Robert and Sabrina. They embraced the mantra, "It's 5 somewhere," as their go-to phrase whenever the urge to drink struck. The heavy drinking accompanied a changing dynamic in their marriage. Due to these changes in their relationship, the couple decided to embark on an open arrangement, allowing each other to explore relationships with other people. One of the couples they frequently socialized with was their friends Jason and Kelly. Despite the unconventional nature of their arrangement, Robert and Sabrina seemed happier than ever. They presented the image of an ideal, modern American family. On Sunday, August 17, 2017, Robert embarked on his usual 85-mile journey to work at the BNSF Railways in Tehachapi. Robert, covering for a coworker, had a scheduled shift at the BNSF warehouse, a mundane industrial building on the outskirts of the city. As the night progressed, Sabrina awaited Robert's return. This night held a special significance for the couple, as their daughter's first day of school was the following day. The couple's daughter did not want to go to bed without getting a kiss goodnight from her daddy. However, Sabrina's concern grew when Robert never returned home. Meanwhile, at the BNSF warehouse, Robert's replacement for the night arrived to find Robert lying lifeless on the floor. The coworker, in shock, immediately called 911, alerting the authorities to the situation. Officers and paramedics arrived at the scene within minutes, but their efforts proved to be in vain. Despite their best efforts, the medics were unable to save Robert. Robert was found sitting against his work truck. Upon examination, the detective saw that Robert had been shot twice, once in the upper torso and once in the head. The crime scene investigators immediately secured and processed the crime scene, a small warehouse belonging to the BNSF. As investigators meticulously examined the premises, they stumbled upon a crucial piece of evidence: an unexpended bullet found above Robert's head. This bullet was collected for evidence testing as investigators sought to piece together the puzzle of this heinous crime. As investigators delved deeper into the crime scene, they walked into the warehouse office and noticed it had been ransacked. Drawers were pulled out, their contents strewn across the floor. Shop manuals, binders, and important documents lay scattered about, seemingly tossed aside in a haphazard manner. Initially, the detectives at the scene believed that Robert's killing was a crime of opportunity. A suspect looking to perpetrate a robbery had stumbled upon the unsuspecting victim and opened fire, leaving him lifeless on the ground. However, as the investigation progressed, the detectives began to question their initial assumptions. Upon closer examination, the detectives realized the crime scene had been staged. News of Robert's murder reached Sabrina, Robert's wife. The devastating news shattered her world, leaving her in a state of shock and grief. Sabrina retreated to her room, shut off from the outside world, and wanted no part in planning his funeral. During the investigation into Robert's murder, the detectives faced a peculiar challenge. Everyone who knew Robert described him as an exceptional person. Robert's friends and family painted a picture of a man who had it all: charm, intelligence, and charisma. According to them, he was the type of man every woman wanted. This overwhelming praise for Robert confused the detectives. If Robert was such a great man, why would someone want to shoot him in cold blood? The detectives were left scratching their heads, unable to find any logical motive behind such a heinous crime. As the investigation progressed, the detectives found themselves at a standstill. There were no witnesses to the shooting, and no evidence at the scene could lead them to a suspect. The only person they were left with to question was Robert's wife, Sabrina. Sabrina assured the investigators that she and her husband had an excellent relationship. She expressed her shock at the realization that someone would want to harm Robert. Although the crime scene yielded a bullet fragment, it provided no evidentiary value. However, the detectives were able to determine that the bullet had come from a .44 or .45 Magnum weapon. Despite the lack of solid leads, the detectives remained determined to uncover the truth behind Robert's murder. Their determination was fueled by the desire to bring justice to a man who, by all accounts, deserved nothing less than the best in his life. In an effort to piece together the puzzle, the detectives received the security camera footage from the warehouse where Robert worked. However, to their dismay, the camera inside his work truck was not running at the time of the incident, rendering it useless. The only camera that captured any footage was outside the warehouse. As the detectives watched the footage, they spotted a person with a limp walking through the warehouse complex around the time they believed Robert was shot. Unfortunately, the grainy quality of the video made it difficult to identify any features of this person. However, the detectives felt confident that it was a man, not a woman, based on the shape of the person's body. Robert's employer, BNSF Railway, stepped in to help in the search for answers. They offered a $1,000 reward for any information that could lead to an arrest. This incentive generated a flood of leads from various tipsters, but unfortunately, none were relevant to Robert's shooting. As investigators delved deeper into the case, they discovered additional video footage of Robert on the day he was killed. This footage was obtained from local businesses located along Goodrich Drive, near the warehouse where Robert was shot. The detectives carefully reviewed the footage and were able to identify and track every motorist who passed by the area during that time. However, there was one notable exception. Despite their best efforts, the detectives were unable to identify the person driving the motorcycle who passed by the area around the time Robert was murdered. This mysterious motorcycle driver stood out to the detectives, who felt strongly that the person was connected to the crime but could not identify them due to a helmet obscuring their face. The identity of the motorcyclist remained a mystery, adding to the frustrations of the investigation. Despite their extensive efforts, the detectives were unable to determine who the person was. As the detectives worked tirelessly to unravel the truth behind the crime, they received an unexpected lead from Robert's friend Jason Bertine. 3 weeks after Robert's murder, Jason came forward with important information that could shed light on the case. He contacted the detective working on Robert's murder investigation and divulged details about a man named Jonathan Hearn. According to Jason, Jonathan was a firefighter and used to work with him. Jason revealed suspicions about Jonathan's relationship with Robert's wife, Sabrina Limon. He informed the detective that Jonathan had called him and left a voicemail expressing remorse for Robert's passing. However, the content of the message was confounding. Jonathan never explicitly admitted involvement in the murder but expressed apologies for what had happened. Jason turned over more evidence to the police regarding Jonathan Hearn. This evidence was a letter written by Jonathan in which he repeatedly apologized for something. However, the letter failed to provide insight into what exactly Jonathan was apologizing for. Furthermore, Jason's wife Kelly shared her suspicions with the detectives. According to her, Jonathan had been spending a significant amount of time at Sabrina and Robert's home following Robert's murder. Kelly found this strange. The detectives began their investigation by looking into Jonathan Hearn's background. They discovered that in 2012, Sabrina, the victim's girlfriend, worked part-time at Costco. Coincidentally, Jonathan was a frequent shopper at this store. Sabrina and Jonathan struck up a conversation, and a connection was formed. After exchanging phone numbers, they soon found themselves in a romantic relationship. However, Robert was unaware of the ongoing affair until he stumbled upon intimate text messages on Sabrina's phone. This discovery shattered his trust in her. Sabrina assured Robert that she would end things with Jonathan, but that promise proved empty. As the detectives explored various leads, they discovered that Jonathan Hearn had access to a motorcycle. This discovery raised suspicions, as the detectives believed that the suspect had used a motorcycle to carry out Robert's murder. Further investigation revealed that there was a Yamaha motorcycle registered to Jonathan. That information added fuel to the detectives' theory that Jonathan Hearn may have been involved in the murder. The evidence of the motorcycle, along with the fact that Jonathan had been involved in a romantic relationship with Sabrina behind Robert's back, made him a plausible suspect. In a desperate attempt to gather more footage of the suspect, the detectives focused on pulling CCTV footage from businesses in the area. Their efforts paid off when they stumbled upon footage of the motorcycle driver pulling into a nearby Pilot gas station. The detectives found more footage of the suspect in the convenience store, where they were able to see the suspect wearing a red bandana to conceal his face. However, with the helmet still on, they were unable to identify the suspect's features. Despite their suspicions, the detectives found themselves in a predicament. Without concrete evidence linking the motorcycle driver to Jonathan Hearn, they could not make an arrest. The lack of visual identification left the investigation at a standstill. However, the detectives remained convinced that Sabrina was involved in the murder. They knew that if their theory was correct, Sabrina's lover Jonathan was likely the culprit. Determined to catch them in the act, the detectives placed a wiretap on Sabrina's phone. Their hope was to intercept any incriminating conversations between Sabrina and Jonathan, providing the evidence they needed. They needed to bring justice to Robert's murder. Sabrina and Jonathan spoke often, and their conversations were mainly centered around God and religion. However, there were moments when Jonathan delved deeper into his beliefs, reciting Psalm 51, also known as the Tale of David of Bathsheba. This psalm, which delves into the consequences of adultery, caught the detectives' attention as they wondered whether their discussion had a deeper meaning. Determined to get Sabrina and Jonathan to open up, the detectives devised an ingenious plan. They called Sabrina and lied, telling her that they had found DNA evidence at the scene linking the suspects to Robert's murder. This ploy was designed to provoke a reaction from Sabrina and Jonathan, hoping it would prompt them to discuss their involvement in the crime. As soon as the detective hung up the phone with Sabrina, they immediately listened in on the wiretap. Sabrina wasted no time in calling her lover, Jonathan. During the call, Sabrina and Jonathan never explicitly admitted to killing Robert. However, the detectives felt the conversation was telling. Neither of them seemed thrilled at the news of the DNA evidence, leading them to believe that they were hiding something. On November 18, 2014, detectives were granted search warrants for multiple locations related to Robert's murder. These searches were crucial in gathering evidence and piecing together the puzzle. At one of the search locations, the home of Jonathan, detectives stumbled upon a Yamaha motorcycle, a helmet, a red bandana, a backpack, and other items. That same day, the detectives arrested Jonathan and Sabrina. Following the arrests, Sabrina was taken to the police department for questioning. During this 4-hour interview, Sabrina adamantly denied having any involvement in her husband's murder. She maintained her innocence and refused to implicate herself in any way. Despite the efforts of the detectives, no evidence could be found to connect Sabrina to the shooting. As a result, the detectives were left with no choice but to release her. Upon returning to Silver Lake, Sabrina was met with an unexpected backlash from her neighbors. The community that once loved her and her husband's infamous parties now turned against her. Sabrina was subjected to harassment and threats, forcing her to pull her children out of school. The pressure became unbearable, and Sabrina made the decision to leave Silver Lakes behind, seeking a fresh start. Sabrina relocated to Camarillo, California. On January 7, 2017, Sabrina was arrested for Robert's murder. The charges against her this time stuck, and the case finally went to trial. Jonathan emerged as the star witness for the prosecution. He testified that Sabrina had suggested divorcing Robert so that she could be with him. However, Robert made it clear that he loved her too much and would rather die than lose her. According to Jonathan, Sabrina then had the idea to plan and execute her husband's murder. According to Jonathan, the first time they attempted to murder Robert, Sabrina mixed arsenic into his banana pudding with vanilla wafers. However, the attempt was unsuccessful and Robert survived. Undeterred, Sabrina and Jonathan planned a second attack. She showed him images of the warehouse and the surrounding area, describing the layout in great detail. Jonathan claimed Sabrina wanted him to know what to expect when he entered the warehouse to shoot Robert. On August 17, 2017, Jonathan confessed to the jury that he made a trip to the warehouse on his motorcycle following Sabrina's instructions. He arrived and confirmed the CCTV footage that showed a man with a limp entering. However, Jonathan admitted that he had faked the limp to throw off the police, hoping to divert attention away from himself. Once inside the warehouse, Jonathan confronted Robert. He admitted to shooting Robert following Sabrina's instructions to make the scene look like a robbery. Jonathan stated that he went into the office and made a mess before leaving the warehouse. Jonathan said he realized Robert was not dead, he was still breathing. Jonathan admitted he shot Robert a second time, this time in the head. After committing the murder, Jonathan fled the scene on his motorcycle, feeling a mixture of belief and guilt. He quickly made his way back home. Upon his return, Jonathan discovered that he had received numerous missed calls from Sabrina. Jonathan immediately called Sabrina back and confessed that he had carried out the murder. As the trial progressed, the prosecution called Sabrina Limon to the stand. Sabrina was the key witness for the defense, and her statements left the courtroom buzzing with speculation. During her testimony, Sabrina said that she and Robert were on good terms at the time of his death, but she also testified that she had feelings for Jonathan Hearn. Sabrina admitted to having a romantic relationship with Jonathan but insisted that she never planned on leaving Robert. She claimed that she and Jonathan were merely exploring their options and exploring a future together while still committed to their respective marriages. However, the prosecution argued that Sabrina's actions did not align with her claims. One of the key aspects of the prosecution's case was the belief that Sabrina may have murdered Robert for financial gain. They argued that Robert's life insurance money could provide the perfect motive. However, Sabrina denied the allegations, stating that any funds she received were placed in a savings account for their children's living expenses. She claimed that she never intended to use the money for her own gain. Sabrina insisted that she had no prior knowledge or involvement in his death. However, the prosecution presented evidence to the jury that showed Sabrina did not act like a grieving widow after the shooting. They presented text messages that Sabrina and Jonathan exchanged, revealing their continued romantic relationship. In one text, Sabrina calls Jonathan a sexy guy and professes her love for him. Sabrina even wrote that she had a desire to kiss Jonathan all over, non-stop. After a lengthy trial, Sabrina Limon was found guilty of 4 of the 6 counts against her, including first-degree murder, attempted murder, solicitation, and conspiracy to commit murder. Sabrina was acquitted of the charge of alleged poisoning. The guilty verdict brought a sense of relief to Robert's family and friends who had eagerly awaited justice. However, the acquittal on the poisoning charge left some unanswered questions and speculation. In November 2017, Jonathan Hearn was sentenced according to the terms of his plea deal. He pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter and was given a 25-year, 4-month sentence. During the sentencing hearing, Jonathan expressed remorse and apologized to Robert's family and friends. Despite his involvement, he seemed to genuinely regret his actions and the impact they had on the lives of those involved. The judge sentenced Sabrina to 25 years to life, plus an additional 16 months. Despite her conviction, Sabrina showed no remorse and filed an appeal with a new attorney. In Sabrina's appeal, she argued that her attorney should never have allowed her to testify. She claimed that her attorney's decision had compromised her defense and ultimately led to her conviction. Sabrina claimed that her attorney had failed to adequately prepare for the trial and failed to protect her interests. Sabrina's appeal went through the state courts, but ultimately, her conviction was upheld. Frustrated, Sabrina decided to take her case to federal court. The case received significant attention, with legal experts and media outlets speculating about the possibility of her acquittal. However, in January 2023, Sabrina's case was again upheld in federal court. This ruling was a blow to Sabrina's hopes.